Well, hello everyone. Welcome to P.B.M. Vending. As I sit down to write this, I still haven't decided on the title. I can't decide if I wanted to call it 8 Things Even a Cheapskate Can Do to Save Money or 8 Things Even a Poor Person Can Do to Save Money. It fits both. I'm just not sure. But let me tell you how we got to where we are. First, we started a game 2 months ago about cash back. Our game for the year is to get $1,000 cash back on our credit cards without getting any new credit cards. And we're on track, we're doing fine. Then I felt like the only decisions I was going to be making for the next 12 months is which card to use. And that didn't seem like taking an active role in accumulating any cash. So I gave it some thought and I came up with trying to save as much money as I could. And when I sat down and did my bills between tithing, investing, and child support, I was already only living on 47% of my income, or 42%. 42%. So then I thought, well, I really don't have a long way to, and I don't make a lot of money. I even make below the national average, okay? So for me to accumulate any cash in the next 12 months, it's going to have to be pretty radical. So I started doing some thinking, and that's how we got to where we are today. This will be the second video I've made on trying to cut my expenses and save as much cash as I can. Now, one thing that I'm going to do that I haven't done yet is I'm going to set a dollar goal. I haven't done that yet because I haven't decided all the ways that I can do it, but I have come up with some, and I want to share those with you because I've got to tell you, I've watched a lot of videos, and they are obviously made by people that are not poor, okay? They may be low income, but they are not poor. Now let me give you an example. I was brainstorming one night, and I remember thinking, as I was sitting in my chair, I heard my hot water heater kick on. Now, I'm single and I live alone. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, okay, so how many times in a week do I use my hot water? And how many times, anyway, I went all the way through. And I thought, well, what if I cut the water temperature down by 20 degrees? Because I know that the power company says if you do that, you'll save some on your bill. So then I thought about it, and I thought, well, what if I just went to the circuit breaker and shut the dang thing off? And then just a couple hours before I need to use it, flip it on. Because, as you may or may not know, I live in an apartment, and my hot water heater, I think it's 20 gallon, I'm not sure. It's not very big. So it only takes an hour or two to heat the water up. So when you think about, especially if you're single, you are keeping water hot 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, so you can wash your hands in warm water, do your dishes periodically, and take a shower. That seems like a waste of money to me. So I've been doing that. And it's really not bad at all. It is a little inconvenient. But I just flipped the circuit breaker off. Now, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and so I went through some of the circuit breakers, and I just shut some of them off. And I'm going to tell you why. Oh, I'm thinking about my fridge. I was thinking about that the other day. As I said, I live and I work in an apartment complex. And we know that when you work on a refrigerator, you can shut it off for several hours and everything's fine. You just flip it back on and it runs and it picks right up. So I've been thinking about, because I come home for lunch, what if I shut my refrigerator down when I leave at 8 in the morning and turn it back on when I get home at noon? That's only 4 hours, but that's 120 hours a month. I don't know. I'm still debating that one, because if I forget, which is possible, then it could be kind of scary. Now, as a painter in an apartment complex, I used to do maintenance, all kinds of maintenance in the apartments. And every so often I work in an apartment where there's a whole bunch of electric meters right outside the window, so I've watched meters for years. And so I always find the one that I'm in and I watch it and I'm like, man, there's nothing on in here but the electricity, and look at that wheel go. Well, we have an electrician on staff, and I talked to him, and he said the electricity is not used only when the item is on. He said the reason that there's two holes in the plug is when you stick it in there, it completes the circuit, which means electricity is being generated, which makes the wheel go round. It's called phantom electricity. You're being charged for it because it's coming through your box into the wall, and now the circuit is being completed and you're paying for that electricity, but you're not using it. That's why. So I went through and I pulled all of the electrical outlets throughout the house. My toaster, why would it be plugged in all the time? I use it periodically. I had a slow cooker and I kept that thing plugged in. Why? I use it once a month maybe. So anyway, I just went through and unplugged everything. It's been fine. I haven't noticed a thing. But I'm still concerned about the refrigerator. I'm still thinking about that one. Now, that all of the electrical things and the circuit breakers is not going to affect my bill for at least a year because I am on level payment plan. However, every month I do get a readout, and I'm going to keep this month's readout and compare it to next month as I go through and do these things and see what kind of an impact it has. Now, another thing, if you can't afford the timer for your thermostat, I mean, they're probably $20 or $30 depending on what kinds you get. Here's what I do. Well, I used to do this a lot. You know, like when I leave in the morning, I turn that bad boy up to whatever. In the summer, AC, I turn it up. And then in the winter, I turn it way down. And then when I come home, of course, it works like a dog for 2 hours to get caught up. But it's been off for 8 hours, or if I work both jobs, 13 hours until I get home. So I'm going to continue to do that. And I did an experiment one time because I had heard the rumor that as long as you left your AC level, it wouldn't matter because it would offset, you know, the 8 hours that you were gone and it had to work 2 hours to get caught up. That would offset the 8 hours it was off. So I did that for a year. I just left it level. And when my payment plan came back, it went from $90-some a month to like $130-some a month. I'm like, holy cow, we're not doing that anymore. So now I'm back to doing that. I leave in the morning, I turn it up, and I come home until I get it comfortable. But a timer on your AC and your furnace, or remember to adjust your thermostat. And I've been doing it for years and I still forget. So write yourself a note and stick it on your thermostat so when you pass it you'll remember. Now the next one is I went back and did the research on my credit cards. When I started doing cash back, I put as many of my bills on my credit card as I can. So I have a pretty good line by line look at what I spend, and I look at that every month, and I have for years. And I also have an exact running balance of how much I spend every month on those bills combined. And one thing that I have noticed, and I told you this in the last thing, that because of the shutdown, I've been spending extra money on restaurants and food because they're carrying the lion's share, and I'm trying to reward them. But I went back and checked, and I normally was spending between $1,100 and $1,500 on my credit cards. In the last 4 months, it's up to between $1,700 and $1,900. So one of the things that I'm going to do is now remember, we're trying to get cash back with $1,000. But if I could save $750 in 1 month by ignoring that game, then I'm going to do that. Got to keep the main thing the main thing. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a number. Let's say it's $1,500, okay, which is the high end of what I was spending before the corona. And I go through a month where I don't spend a lot of money and I only spend $1,000. Then I'm going to take the difference between the $1,000 and the $1,500. That would be $500. I'm going to take it out of the bank, put it in cash, and sit it there and do that for a year, depending on, because a lot of the stuff I can't not do long term because I do stuff for the business with the candy and the vending machines and the placements and all of that. But that's going to be my major cash generator on a monthly basis, is the difference between the base that I set for my credit cards and what I actually do. And I think once I get my numbers together and my plan together, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to do something that I'm going to call a radical month. And I'm going to try to go a whole month and put nothing on my credit cards. I'm not buying any machines, any candy. I'm not going to go out for food. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to do as little as I can on my credit cards because we're ahead. And I'm going to do a video and show you that we're ahead. So I can sacrifice 1 month. I mean, if I could do nothing and then write myself a check for $1,500 at the end, that would be off to a great start. That means we're already 10 months ahead of our other game. So, but I just want to say in advance that just because one game conflicts with the other, I just like to remember the line, keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing right now is not the $1,000 game. The main thing is, how can I help build cash quickly and keep it in my account? Now, why am I so worried about cash? Well, I don't know if you've noticed, but we're in the stock markets is looking like it's going to turn into a bear market, and I've got some cash there, and if it goes down and then it goes into a bear market, I'm going to lose a lot of cash. So what I want to do is I want to get a jump start on that right here, right now. Take some cash, just set it in my savings account. And I want to do that for a whole year, just as much as I can. So I want to keep in mind the long game here, not the short game, but the long game. And I think once we kick it off, I said in an earlier video that I was going to do this in January, February. I may do this a lot quicker because I think the more I look at it, the more I think and plan. And I'm still watching a ton of videos, trying to get other ideas. And I've not heard anybody talk about shutting down circuit breakers. So I mean, it doesn't. I mean, you could be the poorest of poor, but if you're paying for your utilities, any utilities, you can control the circuit breaker. So you could save some money there. So now the credit card thing you might not be able to do, but what about your debit card? The money's already in your checking account, and I mean, go through, you'd have to do like Dave Ramsey said and keep control of, keep a list of every single expense and then go through there, get your base, and then do like a radical month, and then the difference you'll already have in your account. Just move it from your checking to your savings account and do that as long as you can. But I want to remember to keep the main thing, and the goal here is to get X amount of cash into my account within 1 year. And the number just off the top of my head, I'm thinking is going to be 10,000. I have no idea how that's going to happen. None at all. I don't think I've ever saved that in a year in my life. But I mean, like the credit card thing, if we do $500 a month, I mean, there's $6,000 just off of that. And that's only $500. That's cutting my expenses by 1/3 for a year. That's possible. But anyway, so regardless of what we end up calling this video, these are some unusual things that anybody can do, but they're going to be critical for people that are on the poor side or that are real cheapskates. All right? Well, that's about all I wanted to say. You guys have a great week and happy vending.